Meg Griffin has had to endure a lot over the years. She's been established as the brunt of the family and the bottom rung at school. Out of all the things she's had to put up with, we wanted to tackle the top 10 worst things to ever happen to Meg Griffin. Number 10. Replaced on a family reality show. Meg has been humiliated more times than anyone can count, but this one hit hard. After a disastrous sleepover, Meg decided to get revenge on her family by putting them on a local reality show. The producers loved the family's chaotic dynamics so much that they offered to turn it into a full-on reality series. But there was a catch. Meg didn't fit the narrative they wanted. The solution? Simply replace her with a more TV-friendly girl and kick her out of the house to avoid her being seen on camera. Peter and Lois even sat Meg down and told her that she couldn't live at home while the show was being filmed. Imagine being told by your own parents that you were too boring to be part of the family. Being rejected by your parents is one thing, but being replaced entirely? That's some deep emotional trauma. Number 9. Lois stole her boyfriend. Meg has always had low self-esteem, especially when it comes to dating. When she finally brought home a seemingly normal, decent guy, her family was surprised. But instead of supporting her, they turned it into a spectacle. Peter made fun of him, but Lois took things to a whole new level. Meg's boyfriend started giving Lois attention, and instead of setting boundaries, Lois leaned into it. Meg walked in on her own mother making out with her boyfriend. Let that sink in for a second. The betrayal of being cheated on is bad enough, but when your mother is the other woman, that's a wound that may never heal. And the family's reaction? They acted like it was no big deal. Number 8. Abused while driving. Peter and his friends around. Peter losing his driver's license was unlucky for Meg because it meant she had to chauffeur him and his friends everywhere. Meg, trying to help, agreed to drive them around, but Peter treated her like absolute garbage the entire time. He threw tantrums, acted like a spoiled child, and constantly complained about being bored. But things escalated when Peter lit her hat on fire and put it out with beer. Like that was somehow funny. Meg finally reached her breaking point and snapped, taking her frustrations out on another driver in a violent road rage incident. But really, who wouldn't lose it after being treated that way for so long? Number 7. Kidnapped by Chris. This one is dark. After learning it was skip day at school, Meg returned home to find the house empty. When she called Lois, her mom brushed her off and claimed Meg was with them, which meant someone was playing a prank. Meg decided to make the most of it and went to the bowling alley. But when her ID was mistakenly given to another girl who later died in a car crash, everyone assumed Meg was dead. The family was more focused on the attention they were getting than actually mourning Meg. Chris, in particular, was loving the sympathy he was getting at school. When Meg finally contacted him to say she was alive, Chris kidnapped her to keep the sympathy train going. Meg had to fight her way to freedom, only to find that Chris managed to talk his way out of any punishment. Number 6. Groomed by Quagmire. When Meg turned 18, Quagmire saw it as an opportunity. After Meg came home to find no one showed up for her surprise party, Quagmire swooped in like a predator. He showered Meg with attention and tried to manipulate her into sleeping with him. The fact that Quagmire has always been portrayed as a creepy older guy is unsettling enough, but the fact that he targeted Meg right when she was feeling vulnerable makes it even worse. Thankfully, Meg realized what was happening before things escalated too far, but the fact that Quagmire even tried is beyond disturbing. Number 5. Sold into slavery by Peter. Peter's financial irresponsibility hit an all-time low when he racked up a huge debt at Mort's pharmacy. His solution? Use Meg to pay it off. That's right. Peter literally sold Meg into slavery to settle his debt. Neil Goldman, who has always been obsessed with Meg, was more than happy to take her in. Meg was forced to serve Neil and his family like a housemaid. And Peter? He acted like it was no big deal. The idea of being treated like property by your own father is horrifying, but somehow Meg managed to survive it, as usual, with no help from her family. Number 4. Kidney stolen on a date. Meg finally landed a date with a seemingly nice guy named Toby. He was charming, polite, and everything Meg thought she wanted, but Toby had a hidden agenda. After drugging Meg's drink, Toby stole one of her kidneys. Yes, you heard that right. He stole her kidney. And as if that wasn't twisted enough, he later gave it back. Not because he felt guilty, but because he had grown fond of Meg. The fact that Meg survived this ordeal at all is nothing short of a miracle. Number 3. Assaulted by Trump. When Peter started working for Donald Trump, the family was forced to move to Washington, D.C. During a party, Meg was excited to meet the president until Trump made an advance at her. Meg, who was feeling confident after her makeover, didn't realize what was happening until it was too late. Trump's inappropriate behavior left Meg shaken and humiliated. And the worst part? The family brushed it off like it was no big deal. Meg was once again left feeling violated and ignored. Number 2. Got diabetes and lost her legs. When Corey from Corey's World promised he could make Meg internet famous, Peter made a bet that Corey couldn't pull it off. Corey took one look at Meg and decided her niche would be fridge spot, basically eating gross food in front of the camera. Meg went along with it, desperate for attention and validation. But the constant pressure to perform led her to dangerous eating habits. She was eating raw bacon, chugging corn syrup, anything to keep the views coming. It wasn't long before Meg developed diabetes, and eventually she lost her legs. But even then, her family barely seemed to care. Number 1. Kidnapped and sold into a sex trafficking ring. This one crosses the line from dark humor into straight-up horror. Meg agreed to go to Paris with Ruth, but the trip took a terrifying turn when they were kidnapped by a sex trafficking ring. Meg was locked up with other girls, facing the very real threat of being sold off to the highest bidder. Stewie and Brian rushed to Paris to save her, but they were too late. Meg had already been sold. Luckily, Stewie managed to track down the buyer and rescue Meg, but not before Meg experienced unimaginable fear and trauma. Even after she was saved, the emotional damage was already done. The fact that the show played this off as a joke makes it even more disturbing.